All right, we are back here, all back together. We spoke to both Nick and Pete separately on this podcast. Now we're back together talking Clone Wars season 4. Back with me again, sticking here, talking more hockey. Pete Consadori. Pete, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. I'm riled up, but I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, also back on here, Nick Fraietta is back. Nick, fun talk about the schedule. Now we're back into your wheelhouse here at the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I mean, I love football, but it's not Star Wars, so I'm more excited to talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are talking about season 4 today of Clone Wars. We have watched that. We are also going to dive into the premiere of Bad Batch. We watched this one. We are recording for those of you who are watching the video version. We're recording on Cinco de Mayo, so unfortunately forgot the margaritas, but we watched some Star Wars. We watched the Bad Batch. So we're exploring only the premiere. We'll keep track of the rest of the show as we go, but I'm going to put the spoiler warning up early because I'm sure people are going to be checking out the Bad Batch. So if you do not want Bad Batch spoilers, we will tell you again when to get out and watch the show. But we're going to do Clone Wars first, season 4. Pete, I want to start with you. Somebody who's just finished the season as of literally the day before we record. You finished on Star Wars Day. So what do you think about season 4?
So you guys should be proud of me. I didn't finish the day of recording. I finished the day prior. And actually, Mike, I beat you to watch Bad Batch. So shame on you. Anyway, no, season 4, phenomenal. I think the show is actually really picking up at a good pace. I think the writing is a little more concise. I think the writing is a little bit better with telling a story throughout the whole season. And we don't have all these like choppy little story arcs. There are different story arcs in the season, but it kind of almost all seems like they're together now instead of being all over the place. Really excited for season 5.
Yeah, Nick, how about you? I feel like I agree with Pete, and I talk about this off the air. I feel like one of the big things I noticed is that, like, as we said, the story arcs flow together more as opposed to what they were doing before, where we had continuity mistakes, where one episode Zero the Hutt's in prison, the next he's out, and so on and so forth. So, what do you think about this season?
It's better in every way. Storytelling's better, animation's better, the audio's crisper, everything's better, and I'm sure that a lot of that has to do with the budget being higher, but it's just a better show, and it's getting to the point now. We're right at that point now where it's at its peak. I think season 5 is the peak of the show, and I think we'll see that. But we'll talk about season 5 next time. But with season 4, they did a great job, and I think we'll get to our rankings later. But I think we're all going to have the same ranking when it comes to this one, at least.
Yeah, I think we agree with that. Let's talk about some of the major arcs of the season. I think obviously we'll deal with some of the beginning ones later. The droid arc is still one of the worst I've ever seen, but that's a whole other problem. But I think the season as a whole picks up for me with the arc on Umbara, which is a very big storytelling choice for them because the arc starts. It's a big battle for the Clone Wars. We are on Umbara, it's dark planet, and Anakin is there with his Legion at the start of the episode, but he gets called away by Palpatine. We get our very first Dark Jedi, and we get the clones themselves, led by Rex, being the stars of the show for 4 episodes. And it turns out that the Jedi General Krell is basically turning to the dark side, and he's being more ruthless. He's pushing the troops. I thought it was a showcase arc for Rex, and I thought it was a big step for the show where it says, hey, we don't need Anakin here. We can still tell good stories. What do you think about that, Pete?
Yeah, no, I think you summed it up pretty nicely where we don't need those main characters to be able to storytell. Rex, huge season for Rex, in my opinion, just from that story arc. Krell's just an ass. Excuse my language. He's terrible. I kind of smelled something fishy from the beginning with him, just how reckless he was, not to use the clones' words, but how reckless he was and just telling them, yeah, you just got to go straight into battle. Like, don't worry about it. Like, we're going to lose people. No worries. Like, it was too obvious, in my opinion, that he was not for the clones. Granted, there are probably some Jedi out there, or even some people that were fighting for the Republic that think clones are clones. They don't have really any kind of personality or any kind of worth in life. Rex comes out huge in these episodes, and it was a really, really good 4 episodes. I believe it was 4, right? So the arc has a lot of ups and downs, a lot of conflict that the clone troopers, Rex and his squad, have to get over, and they do it without the Jedi. They prove that they don't need the Jedi to be able to fight. They fight alongside the Jedi. The Jedi are their generals, but it really puts power and control and probably a better word for it, the strength shown in those clone troopers this season.
Yeah, Nick, I think one thing interesting about Rex's arc in that little 4-episode Umbar arc is like he basically starts that arc as saying, hey, the Jedi gave the orders, we follow them, we don't question it. And then some of his own men, especially Fives, who shows up here as the arc commander for this group, and he says, hey, like, this is wrong. He doesn't care about us. He's being reckless and take our advice. I think the thing we see here is that Rex finally realized, like, hey, like, if an order is wrong, we don't have to follow. We can think for ourselves. I think it's a big step for those characters.
Yeah, I think this is a huge step for the clones because I think the last 3 seasons and even the first half of this season and in the movie as well, they're trying to show you that clones are not just dispendable. They're not interchangeable. They're all unique. And it didn't really hit at first. The first couple seasons, they're trying to get that message across to us and it's not hitting. And it's just like, to me, they're all the same still. The first time I got any sort of feeling that they're different is that episode, I believe it was a season 3 premiere where they all had to work together. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And this is like where we finally see that they're not dispendable and they do think for themselves. And I think that Krell represents a newcomer to the series. He represents a person who's only seen the movies because to him, all the clones are dispensable. Their job is fight and die, and you don't care about anything else. And people who watch this show, and now us being far enough into the show as we are, we see the clones not just as fight and die. And that's exactly what it's like. They're trying to represent that he's like the stubborn fan who goes, this is a cartoon, I'm not watching this. And well, look what happened.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I also think the character of Krell is also interesting because he is not like a straight. I mean, obviously, he comes off as an ass throughout the arc. He is at the end. He reveals that he basically has given up the Jedi away. He thinks that they are not trying hard enough to win the war. I think the interesting thing with him, Pete, is that like Krell is not your typical like mustache twirly bad guy this franchise likes to use, where it's very obvious that they're bad. Like they're valid points, so the Clark could say, he's got his methods. He has great results, so maybe we should trust the process here. So there's a little bit of gray with Krell before he gives you that reveal. I think it's interesting.
Oh, it's very interesting. I think that when you have something that has that much gray area, it leaves it leaves everyone kind of hanging, right? It kind of leaves you saying, okay, well, what exactly is going to happen? Is he still good? Like, if he loses all these men, are they going to win this part of the war, this battle? To me, as someone who watches a lot of film and watches a lot of shows, I kind of like I said before, I kind of saw something coming. I was like, this doesn't seem right for like the Jedi. Even the people that like don't consider clones to be human or whatever, don't act this reckless, again, not to use the clones words. So I kind of saw something coming. I just didn't know it was going to be that turn that he just was like, I don't believe in the Jedi ways anymore. You guys aren't doing the right thing. Big win for the clones, those episodes though. Big win with it. They were able to win the battle and then also apprehend a Jedi.
Yeah. Great stuff. And Nick, I know you're a big Krell defender, so tell you a little why you think Krell's a good character.
As a defense, I did mention to you, I agree. He's mean. He's a bad person, but I just feel like it was good for the show, if that makes sense. Not that I like him and I support what he's doing. I just feel like he would never get an LVP vote from me because I feel like what he did in the show was good and worth it. He's not like the investigator guy who was just like, what are you doing? He was obviously not nice to the clones. He was a bad person. I'll say it too. He was an ass. But he was written well.
Yeah, he was written very well. I think this arc as a whole is written very well. I think another good big arc I want to touch on here, I think is one that takes the turning point of the whole series, a key point. The arc where Obi-Wan goes undercover as the bounty hunter, where we begin, I think it's 4 episodes. We start episode 15. We see Obi-Wan die. We find out it's a plot that the Jedi have come up with to have him infiltrate a ring of bounty hunters to find out who's trying to kidnap Palpatine. And I think this arc was so much fun because we can see Obi-Wan try and go undercover, literally in the body of a bounty hunter. They do some basically their version of Polyjuice Potion, turn him into the bounty hunter who actually put the hit on him. And he goes, hangs out with Cad Bane and one other bounty hunter for a solid stretch of episodes. I think this arc is fun because it A gives us a lot of Obi-Wan, and B, and I told this to Nick off here, I don't know if I mentioned you, Pete. Nick has mentioned this podcast. When is the point in the plot where Palpatine decides this is where Anakin is my guy? It's no longer Count Dooku. I think it comes in this arc. Pete, did you spot this?
I did.
Yeah,
I did. The reason why I did is because he puts a lot of faith in Anakin when he needs bodyguards or when he needs, when the Emperor, the Chancellor needs some sort of protection because they do think someone's going to take him. And I believe if I'm remembering correctly, one of the scenes he was like, I don't need all you guys. I have Anakin. It's fine. He's my bodyguard. That's all I need. And I think being able to be alone with Anakin to speak freely, not against the Jedi, but like almost like the Chancellor always did, is like, they don't trust you. They don't do this. I just think that's more of like behind the scenes of the Chancellor grooming him to try to join him. I think the Chancellor at this point knows Count Dooku and General Grievous is not the answer. It's Anakin. So definitely one of my favorite arcs. Rako Hardeen, I believe the bounty hunter's name was.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi does a fantastic job as a villain. Sometimes it's hard for the good guy to be the villain. Sometimes it comes off awkward if you ever watch that in a show or a movie. This was really, really good. Really, really well played by the character Obi-Wan. And honestly, it gives a really big insight into how the Separatist bounty hunters, the Separatists are not bounty hunters, the bounty hunters really run their business and how they run their jobs. We get a little bit of that too later on in the Bad Batch, but this was a nice insight in that.
Yeah. Pete, the moment I'm mentioning too, I'll toss to Nick about this, is like in the fight in episode 18, the end of it when they follow the plot and it turned out to misdirect. Count Dooku was on Naboo trying to kidnap Palpatine. They have the fight. And at one point, like Anakin has Dooku on the run. He has basically shoving a lightsaber through a chair. And the camera cuts to Palpatine for about 2 seconds. If you're not looking quick, you'll miss it. And you see this look on his face where he's like, ooh, this kid's like onto something. I could definitely use this kid. And Nick, I think this is the moment where the plot flips and where he says, okay, I'm going all in on Anakin being my apprentice.
I agreed with you. And when you said it, and now I started doing some research for today's recording before, and I was, kind of studying up, and I don't agree anymore. I think this entire arc was set up by Palpatine to be kidnapped on purpose so Palpatine would take him. So Anakin would save him. I think Palpatine made his mind up before this and set this up. And I think the look on his face is more of I was right, more than a surprised view on Anakin beating Dooku. And another thing to point out about this arc is another time the Jedi leave Anakin, and not just Anakin, the other Jedi, in the dark. And it's just more and more convincing why he would feel betrayed in episode 3. And it is not portrayed well enough in the movies at all. And now we see it. But another thing I just enjoy is, I don't know if you guys have noticed, episode 2, Anakin fights Dooku and he gets demolished. I don't even think he touches him. Episode 3, he crushes him, vice versa. And every time they fought in the show, Anakin gets a little bit better against him, to the point where it's like slowly showing that Anakin's becoming more powerful.
Yeah, Pete, that's a great point also. I do think Nick brought up a great point about Anakin continually losing faith in the Jedi. They keep leading out of plans. And Yoda tells Mace Windu, hey, we have to leave Anakin out of this because we have to sell the point that Obi-Wan's actually dead. Because Anakin's reaction, what sells is to the bounty hunters. So they go after Rako Hardeen to bring him into the crew. So I think it's a bad miscalculation by the Jedi's part. Yoda even admits they said, hey, we should have told you this. And I think this is just another sign that the Jedi never really understood what they were getting into with Anakin.
I've said this before, I don't know, on this podcast, and I'll say it again. I think the Jedi Council is directly responsible for Anakin going to the dark side. I think that if Anakin was shown the respect and the trust that he probably deserved, I think that maybe he wouldn't be so quick to receive that respect and that maybe praise from someone who was a Sith Lord. Granted, there was a lot of other factors like, his wife was going to die during childbirth, and he kept seeing these visions and all this different stuff. The funny part is that if he was trusted and he didn't get swayed by the dark side because he wasn't trusted, Padme wouldn't have died. It was Anakin's fault all along. Again, big spoiler alert if you guys haven't really seen the movies, but I'll say it again. The Jedi Council is directly responsible for him going to the dark side. And that's my hot take. That's my.
I agree. I think more
that's my take there.
I completely agree. I think more specifically, Mace Windu.
Oh yeah. Oh, big time.
But the whole council, but Mace especially.
He is a big person who was skeptic on Anakin. He really did not like Anakin for some reason or another. I don't know if we'll find out in this show what exactly he did to really get that trust to be broken. Maybe because he was an outspoken Padawan and he kind of didn't follow the rules, and that's why the Jedi Council didn't like him or trust him with stuff. But you're right. Mace Windu was the sole person that was probably the most rough, the most hard on Anakin when it came to that.
Have you ever heard I don't know if it's a saying or whatever it is, but have you ever heard that, like, if it skips a generation, and like if your grandparents are alcoholics, your parents are not, then you are, kind of thing?
Yeah.
It almost kind of goes with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Anakin. Qui-Gon was against the council didn't like him. Obi-Wan went by the book, followed everything, and they loved him, and then Anakin was next. Kind of feel like that was kind of the way with them.
It's a good observation.
Yeah, it's also wonder, considering that Qui-Gon has died in episode 1, you have to wonder maybe if Qui-Gon is still alive and training is something that could be avoided, because he says, hey, like, in case in the respect to sort of balance, like the line where he can, walk the line and get the council respect while still be able to do his own thing. That's a line Obi-Wan never was able to help him, like, cross properly.
I have a question for you two about this. Why hasn't Obi-Wan stepped in at all? Like, I'm sure Obi-Wan sees how they treat Anakin. Like, you'd think Obi-Wan would be like, hey, like, instead of like the whole, like, oh, they're the Jedi Council, they know what they're talking about. Like, I understand Obi-Wan's by the book, but like, where was the support from his master too?
Yeah. I think that's another reason that he goes off the rails. And Obi-Wan is I love the character, but he's too by the book. I've never seen him disagree with anything. Like, he's always as good as can be. And maybe that'll change in his series. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point as well, because Obi-Wan seems like, because they've seen in episode 1 when he's being trained by Qui-Gon, he disagrees with a lot of what Qui-Gon does. And he says, you know what, like, I'm going to not do what my master did, and I got my master killed, so I'm going to be by the book. I trust the Jedi's wisdom, and he doesn't see that, like, sometimes his own Padawan needs, like, that supporting hand to say, hey, you know what, you have a point, as opposed to, listen to the council, they have wisdom. And I don't think that's what Anakin wants to hear all the time.
Especially with his track record with the council. I think that just makes matters worse.
Absolutely does. I want to get to the other big arc of the season, and we were teased about this in episode 3 in season 3. We get it here. Darth Maul is back. We find out that he somehow manages to survive. Basically, just survives on his hate for Obi-Wan. Just fuels him getting to this garbage planet where he, like, uses spider legs to, like, live. We see he's driven himself insane in the 10 years between episode 1 and where we are in the Clone Wars. And I think there's a lot of fun getting him back, and the dynamic between him and Savage and how they were tag teaming to, like, go after Obi-Wan at the end of the season. That was a very fun arc to go through, Nick.
Yeah, I want to say a little tacky the way he was. Like, he's left alive because of hate, but not a big deal. I don't really mind. It was a little tacky, but no big deal. But a lot of fun. The arc. I don't know. Do you count that as a 4-episode arc or a 2-episode arc? Because really, the first 2 are kind of not really related.
They get tied in at the end. So I'll say, the main 2 is those last 2 episodes.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun seeing him, like, look for him, and you know what he's looking for, but there's something in the back of your mind that's just like, can it really be? Can it really be? Especially if you didn't. I mean, at this point, we all know Maul's alive. We know he's in everything, pretty much Solo and whatnot. But it's a really interesting arc, and it's just I guess that was the first, if I can remember correctly. That's got to be the first one, because this happened. This season aired about 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
So this was the first of the many people that they bring back. They bring back everybody. No one's really dead anymore in Star Wars. Palpatine's walking around still. Boba Fett's still around. Everyone's still around. But this is like the first one, and that's kind of I guess that, they're kind of less of a surprise the more you go on, but this was like the big, wow, I can't believe it's Darth Maul. And when he goes and they fight Obi-Wan and he teams up with Ventress, I mean, that's like, I noticed, Pete, you had said early in the series that the lightsaber fights were like too out of control, and I feel like they're not anymore.
Yeah, Pete, what'd you think about that 2 episode stint for Maul coming back, and that's the 4-way battle between Maul, Savage, Ventress, and Obi-Wan?
Yeah, to talk about the battle, since Nick just brought it up, definitely better choreography in my opinion. It's not too unrealistic. Yeah. There was a lot of times where it's like the movements are just so quick. It's like even a Jedi can't move that fast. But I have to agree with Nick. Like this was a great representation of a good lightsaber battle, like a really good lightsaber battle. I really like the arc, and I really, 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 really appreciate that they made Darth Maul insane at first. I hate when a character comes out of nowhere and he's like, he or she is just the same exact way they were when you left them. I mean, Darth Maul has gone through getting chopped in half. He's on this like garbage planet where he has to use these mechanical spider legs. He's been alone. His best friend's a snake who like helps him eat. I would go insane too. So I'm really, really happy he doesn't emerge this like perfect, healthy minded villain, because if he did, I'd just be like, that's tacky. Like the dude's been living in like hell. So I really appreciate that they made him go insane and that they needed the help of the mother, which again, I can't remember her name because there's just so many names I gotta remember.
Mother Talzin. Yes.
She helps him remember with the new legs and all that stuff. I have to say I really appreciate that arc, and I really, really like the arc because it brings that nostalgia kind of like, oh look, it's Darth Maul. I thought he was dead. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, I also think, Nick, I want to get to your point. Also, you said this could be considered a 4-episode arc. I think there's also another case where the writing sort of sets up here. If you spend 2 episodes before that, right after the Obi-Wan arc before this one, we spend them with Asajj Ventress, where we see her situation get updated, where she basically ends up having the Night Sisters get wiped out by Dooku's forces, and then she ends up tagging along with Boba Fett's bounty hunting crew as in the bounty hunter life. And then we see her show up in the next episode, basically collecting a bounty and then getting involved in this fight. That's the kind of next level writing that this show has not had to this point, where they seamlessly tie these 2 arcs together, though they really shouldn't be.
Yeah, I also loved, I don't know if you noticed, she was on Tatooine and she went to the cantina, the same cantina that Han met Luke in.
Yeah.
That was fun. But yeah, they definitely brought those arcs together. And I think Ventress did a great job this season. And she's one of those characters that I feel like we all know she's not in episode 3. You know what I mean? So the back of your mind is, well, is she going to die? What's going to happen to her? And she just keeps, we're more than halfway into the show now and she's still there.
Yeah, she's still
interesting. You're probably looking for her to either die or go away or whatever it may be. And same with Ahsoka, the same with really a lot of like, I know Rex could easily just been played into episode 3 as a clone, but a lot of these characters now we're getting towards the end. I feel like it's a big wonder on people's minds what's going to happen with them, because they're not in the next movie. And if look how big Ahsoka is to Anakin's life, where is she?
Yeah, we're going to start worrying about that stuff. Let's talk specifics now about the season as a whole, because there are a lot of arcs here. So, Pete, what was your favorite arc of the season or episode? You had just a singular episode you liked.
So I want to just go back real quick and retract what I said earlier. I said we saw some bounty hunting stuff in Bad Batch. I just got confused because I watched Bad Batch after the ending episodes of the season. We saw more bounty hunting stuff at the end of the season, not Bad Batch. So I apologize. Favorite arc has to be the Rako Hardeen arc.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic arc. It's a longer arc. It shows a lot of both sides. It shows a lot of good Obi-Wan could do, infiltrating the enemy, trying to foil a plan to kidnap the Emperor. Excuse me, Chancellor. He's not the Emperor yet. But also it shows how untrusting the council is with Anakin, and how even untrusting Obi-Wan is with Anakin, saying that, well, if he knows I'm not dead, he's going to foil the whole plan. Like, they just don't even give him a chance. And then you see Chancellor Palpatine, like, really looking at him going, okay, this is the guy I'm looking for. Like, I see, as Nick was saying, like, I see he's I was right. I wanted to. This is my plan all along to get kidnapped, and he's going to protect me. And I think that showing both of those sides in one story arc in 4 or 5 episodes, I think that's probably the best arc for me.
Yeah, Nick, I think my personal favorite is Umbara because I just like the spotlight we got on the clones. They tell a really good story with the clones. That was interesting. And what do you think? What was your favorite arc of the season?
It's the last one. I can't wait to see more Maul. And I know I've been saying this a lot on the podcast. It seems like I've been saying this every time we come on, but this time I mean it, and I'm 100% sure of it. The reason that we decided to go through and watch Clone Wars and Rebels is because of how good season 2 of The Mandalorian was, and how the Darksaber and Bo-Katan and Mandalore. This is it. We're getting right into it, and this arc leads us right into it. It's the next time we watch, we're getting directly thrown into that stuff, and that's why I love that last arc so much, because it sets up Maul and his involvement in that stuff, and I really can't wait to watch that.
Yeah, you brought up Bo-Katan, and she does make her debut this season. We did get one episode with the Death Watch. She's there. She doesn't take her helmet off, but we do know that she's working with Pre Vizsla as basically his number 2 in that arc. And I think in that single episode, I think might have been the only one episode hit of the season. And I think it was fun just to get to check in on the Death Watch. And I think, again, they show why they are very dangerous.
Yeah, and we're going to hear a lot more about them and see a lot more of them in the next season. And I did want to mention this is we talked about the lightsaber fights getting more realistic, and just an interesting fact that I want to throw out there is that not starting in the last season 7, they're not only more realistic, they're motion captured. So it's like literally like a real fight, which is, I just think, really cool, because I've noticed, we'll talk about the Bad Batch a little bit later, but I've noticed from seeing the Clone Wars movie to all of Clone Wars to all of Rebels to now to the new Clone Wars season to now Rebels, it's like, obviously it's going to get better as time goes on, but it just keeps getting better to the point where the animation is so good, it's like jaw-dropping.
Yeah, Pete, were you happy to see Bo-Katan show up?
Say that again?
Were you happy to see Bo-Katan show up?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my headphones cut in and out.
Yeah.
No, it was really cool because I was like, oh, I know that person. Like, everyone knew that person that watched the clones and they watched Mandalorian. I had to go the other way. I was like, I saw the Mandalorian. I know who Bo-Katan is. Now I can see it in clones and go, I know that one. I know that one. So it was very cool. It's starting to tie things together. Like Nick was saying, like this was one of the main points why we decided to do this, was because Mandalorian was so good and there was all these characters that we didn't really, I don't want to say know of, but like some of them I didn't really know of them. It's just like, I don't know who that person is. I don't know who Ahsoka is. I don't know who. It was really, really cool to see things tying together like that.
All right, let's go to the other direction. Let's go to the worst arcs or episodes of the season. I don't know if we're going to be unanimous, but I'm going to say it here. They do not know how to write droid stories. Every droid arc they do is absolute garbage. This one was pathetic. I mean, it was a chore to watch those 3 episodes for C-3PO and R2 with the stars.
I think not only I agree, but like, how do you write a droid episode? I feel like they just shouldn't have any droid episodes. Forget, like, I don't think that they're doing it wrong or right. They just shouldn't do it at all. It's not going to work. No one cares. One of them can't even talk. Like, what's the point?
And
Pete, it's just Anthony Daniels talking to himself.
Yeah, and Pete, C-3PO starts a civil war in one of the planets he lands on.
Yeah, I mean, worst arc in my opinion as well for the season. It's hard. Like Nick was saying, like, one doesn't talk and the other one is really, really just boring to listen to, I think, in my opinion. Like, granted, C-3PO, I like him. He's an iconic Star Wars character. But like, I don't want to hear 3 episodes worth of just him talking.
Yeah, and he's like he's comedic relief.
I'll laugh. Like, I get it. But again, this seemed like a filler. This was like, we need to throw something in the middle of the season because we need 3 more episodes to fill our 20 episode season or whatever it is. So we're going to throw some, C-3PO is going to do some fun stuff and start a civil war and all this stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's terrible. Like, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, turn it off. Like, I watched it. I laughed a little bit, but it wasn't like, if it wasn't in the season, it wasn't going to change anything about the season. So for that reason, worst story arc.
I feel like this should have been in season. It's like, if this is in season 1, we wouldn't have blinked an eye. It's season 4, all this good stuff going on around it. It just sticks out like a sore thumb.
Oh, 100%. Imagine there was one season where just C-3PO and R2-D2.
They do have a droid. They do have a droid show.
They do? Oh, I'm definitely not watching that.
Yeah. One arc I
think it's Lego. I think it's a Lego show.
That'll make more sense.
Yeah.
One arc I also want to mention, we didn't touch on it yet, What did you guys think of the premiere arc? The first 3 episodes were on Mon Calamari on Mon Cala for the first 3 episodes, and we got the Akbar cameo. We got the plot to basically the Separatists try to split the Mon Cala people and have the Civil War play their advantage. What do you think of that arc, Nick?
I think it's classic Clone Wars. Separatists trying to get in there, split people, take them, and the Republican Jedi going in there and not letting it happen. It was good action. Story was decent. I didn't mind it. It's classic Clone Wars. It's not that memorable, but it wasn't bad in any way. It was just exactly what I expect to see in most Clone Wars episodes that are not like the Maul plot, which in my mind is the best part of the show.
Yeah, Pete, what'd you think about the game, the Akbar appearance?
Yeah, no, I love the Akbar appearance, but I have to agree with Nick. It was a good arc, but it wasn't anything incredible. Typical Clone Wars, like he said. I think it was a nice arc to start with. Just ease into the season. If that was the first arc I was watching and I was watching 1 episode a week, I'd be a little bored. But since I binge it and you can watch all 3 episodes in about an hour, you get through and you're like, okay, this is a nice little taste of what's going to be going on. Not terrible, but not the greatest.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get to now some of our season tracking stuff. I'm pulling our tracker right now. We have to update the Padme getting captured tracker. We finally got another one. She gets captured in that premiere arc we talked about. So she's up to 5 on the series so far, Pete.
Yeah. She's a talker, isn't she?
She definitely is.
She likes to go in there like, I'm going to talk to them and we're going to fix this whole thing with the Separatists. And it never works out that way. I don't think one thing that she's spoken to anyone has fixed it. There's always a fight afterwards.
Yeah.
At this point, it's expected every season she's going to try to be diplomatic, and then there's a fight anyway, and that's what's going to resolve it, not her.
Yeah, basically, she's like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football with the diplomacy. It just never works.
You can tell,
right?
You can tell that she is Leia's mother. That's how Leia acted as well. She was always looking for the diplomatic solution.
Yeah, that's true. So she's up to 5 there. You don't have to worry about Zero anymore. Zero's dead, so the Zero tracker is dead with him.
Yes.
Still no Hondo. Hondo's stuck at 5 appearances. Nick, it's been a while since we've seen him.
Yeah, we'll see him again, and then I actually think he's a little more prominent in Rebels.
So we have to carry this over to Rebels then with us. This Hondo.
Yeah, I got to carry the Hondo tracker over, and with Padme, you had mentioned that like the tracker in the beginning, and I was sitting here like, I don't think she gets captured that much. And now I'm rewatching, I'm like, oh my God, she's always getting captured.
Like every season she's getting
captured. When you first made the tracker, I was like, I don't think that's worth a tracker. It's only going to be like 2. And now it's already 5 after 4 seasons.
Yeah. You get captured at least once a season. And one we forgot about, but one I can bring back, we were tracking appearances of the Darksaber. So now we have a second one on the board from episode 415 when we had the Death Watch show up.
I think that's going to triple or quadruple or times 10 in the next season.
Yeah. I also proposing we start a Bo-Katan tracker because she's one of the reasons we started this. So I'm going to start the Bo-Katan watch. We have 1 appearance of Bo-Katan on the board.
Like I said, next season is the one.
Yeah, so that's our trackers right now. We're also going to get into our MVP, LVP standings. So just reset here. So we have the leaderboard right now is Anakin is at the top at +7, Obi-Wan +3, Cad Bane +2, Padme +2, Ahsoka +1, Jar Jar Binks, thanks to me, he's in the positive at +1. Mace Windu +1, Plo Koon +1, Savage Opress +1, Count Dooku +1, rounding out the positives. The negatives, Bail Organa, thanks to Pete, -1 for saying that for ripping off the New Hope line. You had Master Peel -1. The writer's room gets a negative point, thanks to me from last season. The father, -1. Tarkin, -1. Luminar and Dooley, -1. Palpatine, -3. And tied for dead last at -4. The Investigator, Douche, and Zero the Hutt are -4. So
I think they're going to stay right there at those 2. I think they're made their final appearances.
Yeah, so they're there. They're going to see if anyone will pass them. And we'll see what happens there. But let's go ahead and let's hand out some awards here. We're going to go around the horn, start with the MVP. So, Nick, I'll go to you first. Who is your MVP for season 4? Your first one?
I'll give my first to Obi-Wan. I think Obi-Wan, we talked about the arc numerous times. He did a great job undercover. He's the follow the book Jedi, and he kept doing it, and he did it. Yeah, like I said, he did a very good job undercover, and it was very believable, actually. And as Pete mentioned, you see the good guy go bad. It's usually cheesy or it doesn't seem well. It's awkward. It wasn't at all, and it was a great arc. And finally, credit to Obi-Wan, because in my mind, he was just there because he was in the movie. So you have to put him in the show, and he didn't really matter. But this is the first time that I feel like he actually matters in the show.
Yeah, I will follow up. I'll give Obi-Wan a point as well, because he may be a great bounty hunter. He actually sells the fact he's a bounty hunter. Like, he manages to do underhanded things without killing anyone, which is maintaining the Jedi Code while being a bounty hunter, which is also very impressive. And he earned the trust of Cad Bane, which is not easy to do. So good job, Obi-Wan, there. Pete, who's your first MVP?
So I'm going to give you my first and second, because my first one is Obi-Wan as well. So for the interest of content, so it's not just Obi-Wan. So Obi-Wan as well did a great job as a villain. Don't like that he kept Anakin in the dark. Again, I think because he was going by the Jedi Council and he's such a by the book guy, like Nick was talking about. It makes sense, but I'm going to give him a point. My next MVP has to go to Rex. I think he did a phenomenal job, and the rest of the clone troopers in that squad, phenomenal job. Not only do they win the battle, like I said earlier, but they also apprehend a Jedi. So it was honestly, kudos to them in this season.
All right, so Pete's 2 MVPs are on the board. Nick, who's your second MVP?
My second MVP is going to go to Chancellor Palpatine. I think we mentioned it. I think he set that entire thing up. And if that's true, that is just genius. And every time I seem to rewatch the prequels or any prequel related content, I look at it and I say, wow, he designed all of this. Like, you think, it's like everything is because of him. The entire war, the council falling apart, Anakin being Vader, the Empire's existence, it's all because of Palpatine. Even in the sequel movies, it's all because of Palpatine. Everything is Palpatine. This is the Palpatine saga.
Yeah, so great job at Palpatine there. I'm going to give one to Rex, too. I'm going to back up Pete's point here. I think he did a great job and started standing up to Krell, not only following orders, realizing they had a traitor in their midst and taking care of the problem. I'll hand my third out here to make it easy. I'm giving one to Yoda here, because Yoda did a very sneaky little move here in that season finale arc where Obi-Wan, let's call about Darth Maul. He knows Obi-Wan's not going to go alone to not risk any civilians' help here. So how does he get Obi-Wan help? He puts the hit out on Savage, knows that Asajj will find it, gets Asajj Ventress out there to help Obi-Wan not get killed. So Yoda gets a very stealthy MVP point from me.
Yoda can't do wrong.
Did I miss that? Did something say that Yoda put the hit out on Savage, or are we speculating that?
It's implied very heavily, because Mace Windu says he shouldn't go alone, and Yoda's like, he won't be alone, or something like that, and Yoda speak. And then the next season, you go to the cantina on Tatooine, and Asajj picks up the hit, and then she goes. So we're led to believe that Yoda's the one who puts the hit out.
No, so it's a good point. That's a good point.
Funny to think that Yoda's putting out hits. It's funny to think.
He did the job, though. He got Obi-Wan some much needed assistance.
Yeah,
true.
Pete, who's your last MVP?
So my last MVP, I've been switching and flip-flopping around a couple people. The 3 people I've been going between are Darth Maul, Ventress, and the Chancellor. I'm more inclined to give it to Ventress. And the reason why I say that is because she goes from this separatist assassin to I work for no one helping the Jedi. And I consider that huge character development. And I think Ventress has not gotten a lot of credit on this podcast, or probably in general, because she is looked at as the villain. But from where she started to where she is now, there has been incredible character development. So I think I'm going to give her the MVP for this.
I respect that choice. Very, very good choice there. Nick, you have one more MVP to wrap up the club. Where are we going?
So I was deciding between 2. One of them was Ventress, and I'm not going to go that route. I have to ride the hype train. It's got to be Darth Maul is back. Darth Maul, the character who we were all 10, 8 years old, whatever it was, in the movie theater, and he put out 2 lightsabers and our jaws dropped. That was the best moment we'd ever seen as kids. He's back, and that is awesome. And he had more lines in episode 21 than he did in all of The Phantom Menace. which is funny to think. He only had like 3 lines in the entirety of the Phantom Menace, I think. And I just can't wait to see him. I also don't know if you guys noticed. I'm sure you did, but you noticed the last 2 episodes, they had the title card was red instead of yellow. That was pretty cool. They do that in the later seasons as well, but I just thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was great too. I almost thought about giving an honorable mention to Jar Jar once again for impersonating the Separatist general in there.
I forgot about that.
Is that what I get to give him props? Because he did a good job holding off the. He fooled Grievous or Dooku, whoever was, long enough to basically stall the invasion, and that was a good job by Jar Jar, who's not exactly a improv specialist.
Yeah, I agree. It was a good job. I don't know.
You like getting Jar Jar on the list?
Yeah, like let's not.
He did
listen.
not.
I wanted Slice Noodles on the list, and she didn't get on the list. So
I said you got an honorable mention. He did not make the list, but he was like number 4 for me.
Fine, we'll accept it. We'll allow it.
All right, now this is the fun part again. We go to the LVPs, and this is the one where I had fun because I ding the writers for one. So I'm going to start with Pete. Who is the first LVP on your board this season?
C-3PO. C-3PO. The droid episode just kills me. I'm going to say C-3PO is my first LVP. I don't think there's much more to talk about other than that story arc was just trash.
Yeah, he was on my honorable mention list for inciting a civil war on a planet that he just happened to basically bumble F his way onto. So he was a consideration for me. Nick, who's your first LVP?
R2 3PO. Just give it to 3PO for the sake of consistency, but like we can't do anything.
We should probably do it as a duo because usually they're bad when they're together. Like C-3PO.
R2 can't do anything. I mentioned he can't talk, so he can't. It's not his fault, I guess, but 3PO, it's just, I don't know. It's boring. I don't care. Like the droids, they're supposed to be comedic, especially 3PO, comedic relief. Like when Han Solo's finally kissing Leia for the first time, he interrupts, like something like that. He's not supposed to be the centerpiece of the episode.
So while we split the baby here, Pete does C-3PO, you do R2D2, they're both hit on the list.
I would say do it as a couple.
I would say, do the droids and hit them together.
So instead of the writers, it's the droids.
R2-3PO.
Yeah. Okay.
R2PO.
So the droids are -2 combined.
Yeah.
And I'll jump in with my second one right away. And it saddens me to do this, but it is. I'm going to give it to Savage Opress because last season it was so hyped to see him because I was like, oh my God, this guy looks like Darth Maul. This is so cool. And this season he's just literally become a figurehead. He found Maul. Now no one cares about him anymore. I don't care what happens to you. You're the bad Darth Maul. I don't care. Maul, you're the guy. And cool that he found Darth Maul, nothing against the character personally, but once you get Maul back into the action, you're just known as Maul's brother.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a fair point with your first 2 points. I'm going to get my first LVP. I'm docking Anakin a point here because, again, going back to that episode on Naboo back at the beginning of the season when Jar Jar stalled the invasion, they capture General Grievous and Anakin undoes it because he's impulsive and goes and gets himself caught by Dooku and forces Padme to trade Grievous back for him. So that's one where the entire Clone War flips if they capture Grievous and actually keep him as a prisoner instead of sending him back to run the droid army. That's a big point for him against him. Plus, he acts more impulsively throughout the season. We see him lose his cool in the slave arc he didn't talk about, loses cool a lot down the stretch. So Anakin trained the wrong direction. He gets a -1 from me.
Yeah, I agree. I think he didn't have a strong season. I'm not giving him an LVP, but he didn't have a strong season.
All right. Yeah. Who's your second LVP?
This one's a tough one for me. My second LVP, because I forgot the dude's name because I'm terrible at names. Who was broken out of prison with Cad Bane?
The main bounty hunter. I remember his name, but
yeah. He's just so whiny. Just so whiny. Like, I thought it was my mission. Just shut up. This is bounty hunters. We're in Star Wars. Just very whiny. He just annoyed me. LVP point to him.
Yeah, I'm going
to notice how with the bounty hunters, I think this was interesting how there were a group of them, especially whatever this guy's name is, I forget too. They were all believing of Obi-Wan, and Cad Bane had a silly sneaking suspicion on him. I thought that kind of showed that he's that much better and that much more respected of a bounty hunter and a character in general, where he's the one who has suspicion. Like, you're not going to get it past him that easily. He's not going to get fooled. He's not just going to get stomped on. And I thought that was very interesting how they're still showing respect to Cad Bane, who we had given some MVP points earlier in the series.
Yeah, I did look it up, Pete. It's Moralo Ival is the bounty hunter who had the mission taken from him. He was whining the whole arc, so he gets an LVP from you.
-1.
All right. I'm gonna piss Nick off with this one. I'm giving Cad Bane an LVP for this season.
Oh.
And I have a very specific reason to point to for this. This is the second episode of the arc. After they break out of prison, they go to, I forget what planet they go to try and restock on supplies. Cad Bane is in the shop. He's looking for the hat. And Obi-Wan, as the bounty hunter, says, hey, don't buy that hat. Like you're going to get noticed. And he's like, I need to wear this hat. This is great. And then as soon as Ahsoka and Anakin land on the planet, they spot Cad Bane. And Anakin's like, is that Cad Bane? Ahsoka says, yes. Only he would be obnoxious enough to wear that hat. So for the fact he literally got himself almost caught and blew the whole mission out of hat, he's getting an LVP.
I think he was a much, this is sound crazy, but I actually feel this way. He's a much weaker character than his hat. I really believe that.
Yeah.
I really think his hat makes his personality, and him without it just made him look like another one of those aliens.
But at the same time, Nick, he almost blew the mission over the hat.
Oh, yeah, I understand. I just think he's cool.
Yeah. I just think if you're a bounty hunter, you got to be smarter than that.
It's fair.
But let's go to Pete. I should go to Nick here. Give me your last LVP.
I was struggling with this one because I had 4 MVPs and I had 2 LVPs, and I was very confused on what to do here. And I landed on Dooku. I think Dooku seems really weak in the Ventress role, where he's going all out attacking on them. Maybe that's just how the Sith work. You know, like when someone wrongs them, they just go all out attack and try to kill them and whatnot. But I feel like he seems very weak in the way he's going after Ventress like that. And then also I think he kind of lost the fight to Anakin, the lightsaber battle. And I feel like Dooku's, that's not like a bad writing thing on the character, like for the writers or anything on the show. I just feel like the character's not as strong as he was.
Yeah, that's certainly fair. Pete, who's your last LVP?
I'm going to give this one to Padme. I have an honorable mention too, but I'm going to give it to Padme because I'm just so tired. I'm so tired of her saying, like we talked about, yeah, I can go talk to them. We could fix this. Like, no, you can't fix anything with the Separatists by just talking to them. You can't. It ain't going to happen. And she hasn't learned that in 4 seasons. Like, come on.
Yeah. I mean,
it bothered me a little bit. So I'm going to give her a -1.
To be fair to her, it did almost work once. She also ended the Clone War by talking one time, but every other time it has blew up in her face.
Yeah. So
who was the honorable mention by the way for you?
All of the random no screams that Maul and Savage pressed for some reason. This every time they got angry, they just did like that cliche yell. That's an LVP for me. So
that would have been basically back on the writers. Then it would have been a -2.
Yeah, I'll go for the writers then. Yeah, just every 5 seconds, every time Savage pressed and gets away, he's like, ah. I'm like, okay, we don't need it.
So to clarify, you're giving it to Padme, not the writers.
Yeah, Padme is the real LVP, and the writers is the honorable mention.
All right, so I have
for that reason alone. The rest of it was written pretty well. That reason alone, I give the honorable mention to the writers.
Okay, so my honorable mention here is Lee Char from the Mon Cala arc, because he has the brilliant idea that he's going to inspire his people by swimming into a prison filled with Separatist guards and droids. That's extremely stupid. That should get you on the LVP board, but it did not. He got an honorable mention. The LVP he was #1 on my LVP board was Lux from the Death Watch arc. Because he had this brilliant idea that this group called themselves the Death Watch, this honorable organization that was going to live up to their word and not screw them over. Kid, do your damn research. Know who you're getting into bed with if you're trying to pull off an assassination plot here. So big time LVP points to energy to Lux here for having no idea what he's getting himself into.
Now we know we're getting ourselves into it with the Death Watch, and that's very exciting for season 5.
Yeah, I think it is very exciting for season 5, and we'll get to that in a minute. I think to close out the ranking business, we're all in agreement. Season 4, #1 on the list so far, the season rankings.
Oh yeah,
100%.
So
my only complaint with season 4 is that if the second half didn't happen and it was only the first half, I don't think it was a strong season. The second half was really, really good. The first half was, I mean, the second half has, if I'm remembering this correctly,
I think
so
it's the.
you
I think it's the
do
first.
have
I think it's the first third is the problem. Like once you get past the droids, then it gets really good.
yeah, you get the Umbara arc, but you get the Obi-Wan arc and the Darth Maul arc to end the season. That was strong.
Yeah. All right, so that's so the season ranking right now. Season 4 is on the top. 2 and 3 are still tied right behind it. We have not broken that tie yet. We'll leave that one for another day. Then season 1, then the movie.
Yeah, I think 3 suffered, as I mentioned, in the way that 4 didn't. Maybe there were the same amount of good episodes in 4 as there were in 3, but they ordered them right in 4, so it left us with a nice taste in our mouth at the end. And in 3, it should have ended with Darth Maul, not make us wait a season and a half to see it.
Okay, that's fair.
But it didn't happen. So too bad for season 3.
All right, let's spend a few minutes on the Bad Batch. And again, if you have not seen it yet, go watch the episode. If you care about being spoiled, come back. And I will say, guys, I love this. This was so cool. I love the fact that like you could jump right in here without even finishing Clone Wars. They gave you the hint that, hey, this is a Clone Wars spinoff. We had the narrator in there. It was a really good story they told with the Bad Batch. Pete, instant thoughts on the Bad Batch premiere.
I think it was really good. Hour and 15-minute episode didn't feel like an hour and 15 minutes, which is always great. That kind of tells you how good the episode was in my eyes. I do like that they had that Clone Wars spinoff kind of feel with the same exact narrator, and it had that kind of feel as well because you are talking about clones. What I really appreciated was seeing what happened, and this is a spoiler alert for everyone that hasn't seen this. It's nice to see how this Bad Batch reacts when Order 66 is put into place. It gives you that behind the scenes look of what's going on and what exactly was told to the clones. I mean, when we watch the movie, when we watch episode 3 and Order 66 is performed, you just see the clone turn around and shoot the Jedi, and just there's no explanation to it. It's just like execute Order 66, and all of a sudden the clones are just, we don't like you anymore. You guys are the bad guy. We're gonna turn on you. Bad Batch is starting to show like we're gonna change the Republic to an empire. The Jedi are being treasonous. You should not trust them anymore. So it shows how manipulative the Emperor is. And it's not just some sort of, granted, it is the chip inside them that makes them change, but it's not just this like automatic assumption that, okay, the chip activates, that's it, do what you have to do. But there's also that manipulation to rise with the Emperor against Jedi and what's going to be later on the rebellion.
Yeah, Nick, I also want to mention here, you mentioned it several times here, when you get to season 7 of Clone Wars, the last 4 episodes basically is occurring like simultaneously with episode 3. So it feels like you're watching a movie here. It's sort of the same kind of feel in that sense, where like we're seeing what happened to the Bad Batch at the end, like through episode 3, we see Palpatine's speech at one point, being portrayed to the clones on Kamino. We see how they react to Order 66. I thought that was a very effective way to just throw us right into something familiar to us if you watch the movies.
Yeah, I thought this was fantastic. First of all, I have to say the animation was jaw-dropping. It was amazing. I was in shock of how good it looked, especially at the beginning when they had the Padawan and the Jedi killed on the snowy planet there. The animation was like unbelievably good. But like, as Pete said, it's nice to see a clone's point of view on this. You do see more of that in the last season of the Clone Wars, and we'll get there. But it was really fantastic. And spoiler alert for all you guys, I had mentioned this before to you guys off the air, but the Padawan who escapes there is the main character, maybe second main character of Rebels. And that's awesome to see his backstory. Now, if you look a little deep into this on the internet, you'll see a lot of people complaining about this because he had a comic written about him. And in the comic and in this episode, it does not really match up. There's a lot of things that are different on what happened. And people are kind of complaining about that, how it's not continuity. Both these things are considered canon, but the same thing didn't happen. But, I didn't read the comics, so I don't really care. To me, it was really cool to see his backstory and see it live in person. And, we saw a lot of characters in this too. Like we see him, his name is Kanan or Caleb in the show, Kanan in Rebels. We see Tarkin, and Tarkin has a big role too. He's not just in a scene. Tarkin's a big character. We see the Emperor, of course. And then we see Saw Gerrera. Yeah. Which is awesome too. And I've mentioned this a lot of times. I don't know if I ever mentioned it to you guys on this podcast, but this is an era of Star Wars that we know nothing about. We have a lot of content between episode 3 and episode 4. We have Rogue One, we have Solo, we have the whole show of Rebels. We have, did I say Solo?
Yeah.
Yep, we have Solo. We have all that, but all that stuff takes place closer to episode 4. So like the immediate time right after Order 66, right after episode 3, we have nothing for like 5 to 10 years. So we do know, for example, at least I know, that the Empire that we see in the original trilogy, they don't use clones. They use human soldiers. And anyone who's not a human is considered an enemy of the Empire. That's what everyone who works for the Empire is humans. All the clones or the stormtroopers are humans. But in episode 3, that wasn't the case. You have clones, you have all sorts of alien races in the Republic. And we don't see where that changed. And now we're seeing it right in front of us. We're seeing the it was called the Empire after episode 3, but it was basically just a republic, but evil. Now we're seeing it become that Empire. We're seeing how a Tarkin has that test for the clones. We're seeing that unfold in front of our eyes.
Yeah. I thought that was very cool with Tarkin in there. Sagar, I know he pops up a couple other places. I'm sure we're going to see him soon on Clone Wars itself. So I think I'll be interested to see more about him down the road. But I think it was cool to see how, and the show basically told you, and you did not have to watch the season 7 arc they're introduced to know more about Bad. Basically, they tell you, good job telling you, hey, these are guys, they have unique defects. This sort of made them not susceptible to the chip that commands you to do Order 66. So they at least were questioning, why are we doing this? As opposed to the other clones were blindly following the normies, as they call them, and said, hey, Order 66, shoot the Jag. Okay. Whereas the Hunter and all of them were like, why? Why are we doing this? Except for Crosshair, who is the one clone who's sort of very eager to follow the orders. I thought it was interesting to see how they were sort of navigating this, how Tarkin tries to set them up for basically prove that they're useless by sending them to assassinate Saw Gerrera's group. And we get the turn at the end where Crosshair ends up becoming the enemy of the main group because he gets basically his chip re-trigger and he becomes sort of Tarkin's one-hand assassin trying to kill the rest of the Bad Batch. So Nick, as somebody who's watched them, what do you think of that decision?
Well, first off, I'm thrilled that they did that right away, because if you watch the 2 trailers, it's pretty obvious he's going to turn on them. He's not in the second trailer. The way he's acting in the trailer, I thought it was oh no, is this whole season going to be about him turning on them? And the fact that they did it in episode 1 makes me feel all right, good. You know how you go to a movie and you've seen the trailer already and you're hoping that the trailer isn't the big moments, and they get that out of the way in the first 20 minutes, and then you're okay, now for the rest of the movie I'm going to be surprised. I'm not going to know what's happening. So that's basically what we got here, and I was really thrilled to see that, because now I don't know what's coming at us next. But I do have a huge question that maybe is an easy answer. I don't know. You know the girl, Omega.
Yes.
I just don't understand. How is she a Jango Fett clone, but female? I don't get how does that work? How does that work? I don't know how. I know cloning isn't really real in real life. I mean, I'm sure to an extent it is, but is that possible? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, Pete, what do you think about that? Because when I watched it, I sort of read it as they were doing a little more experimentation with clones, and then they came up with her, and she sort of was a Bad Batch kind of clone where she had certain defects, where she has certain abilities that make her different than all the normies.
Wouldn't all the clones be male if he's a male? That's all I'm getting confused.
Maybe different sort.
So my first theory was that they took her from wherever she's from and they tried doing experiments on a regular person instead of having to do it with clones. But then they said something about parents, and she was parents? She didn't understand that. So that made me kind of think maybe she is a clone, through and through. I don't know exactly where she came from, if she's a clone of Jango Fett or if she's a clone of some other powerful bounty hunter or Jedi or whatever. That I don't know. One quick thing about the clones, though, that I want to point out, I don't know if you guys caught this, probably did, but something I appreciate is a lot of the story building that the Clone Wars have done for me for the episodes that we've seen. Between episodes 3 and 4, we have clone troopers turn into stormtroopers, and the stormtroopers are not clones anymore. In the Bad Batch, Tarkin tells the creators of the clones, we're not going to need these clones anymore. The war is done. You could stop production. We don't need them anymore. And that, even though it's such a small little scene, it's probably such something small that people just say, oh, he's just being, he's being an ass to these people. Like he's just showing all that like the war is won. We don't need any reinforcements. And the woman's like, no, the prime minister's like, you kind of do need reinforcements to keep this whole empire running. You need troops. They go, no, we got it. It's nice to see that that's where it ends, or at least that's the beginning of the end where it comes to clone production, because you go from, like Nick was saying, clone troopers to just regular humans that become stormtroopers. And I like that connection. Yeah,
I also want to pick on the Omega thread here, Nick. I think it's interesting is we get the scene at the beginning of the episode, Hunter, where he fails to help out the Padawan and fails to help out Caleb, and he ends up running away and not really helping him out. And here at the end, he says, we have to go back and help Omega. She's one of us. And I think it's very interesting that you see that development from him saying like, hey, like, we're not just clones, don't follow orders. This is wrong. Like, this kid's one of us. We need to protect her. I thought that was a good character development moment for Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter did a very good job in the episode, and I'm excited about him for the show because in their arc in the Clone Wars, they're all very forgettable. You just knew there was the leader, the what do you call him? The wrecker. What would you call him? The muscle.
Yeah.
The brains, and then like the sniper. You know what I mean? And then of course Echo. But like they didn't stick. Like the characters didn't stick to me. Like Hunter was just the leader, and now I'm seeing him as Hunter instead of the leader.
Yeah.
He did a good job in the episode, and I really, really couldn't believe that they brought Saw Gerrera in that early, because it was like right away they're showing sympathy for the Rebel. The Rebel Alliance is not going to exist for a good 20 years, but for the Rebels, the Rebels will come together and make the Rebel Alliance. That's why it's the Alliance, because it's like an alliance of Rebel forces, but Saw Gerrera being that early in the show shows like how much against the Empire he was. You see that in Rogue One, how his crew were like terrorists because they're that much against the Empire, which is awesome to see. I always say that. You see the other side of the Rebels in Rogue One. They're not just the good guys. Like they're blowing things up too. So I thought it was awesome seeing him that early, and Tarkin was great too. I really loved it. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, so I thought it was great to get those characters in there. I want to take a look here because we all know they have special abilities and their defects. What do you think Omega's is? Pete, any theories on what Omega's like special superpower is here?
It seems like she can sense things pretty far in advance.
Yeah.
I don't know if that maybe she's connected to Hunter in some way, because they mentioned that Hunter has some sort of like his defect is that he can sense things, or his experience. I could be completely wrong on that, but it seems like she has some sort of, I don't know,
premonition.
Yeah, she is like the whole thing with Crosshair. She's like, well, we're gonna run into some trouble, and then Crosshair opens the doors, and that's Crosshair. So she knows.
Think about it. Huh? Think about it for a second. I mean, I don't know the answer. This is my speculation to it. Think about it for a second.
I mean, could she be Jedi?
That's what I think.
Could she be a clone of a Jedi? Is that where?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
And she's using the Force to some sort of degree. You think?
That's my theory. I theory is she can sense things before they happen. I think she's Force sensitive.
I think it's an interesting point because she also has that scene when they're all in the break and she goes to the Crosshair and says, "You're going to do something bad. You can't help it." And I think that's a very interesting point because that's like she like sort of knew he was going to turn on them before he did.
But they have to be careful because if she is Force sensitive and the show is about a mercenary or group of mercenaries protecting a young Force sensitive thing from the Empire, you're just remaking The Mandalorian. So they got to be careful that they don't do that because that's the exact same thing.
Yeah, it is true. I do think it's interesting because we do have it's also a different era they're setting, but they don't want to just rinse and repeat. Oh, this worked in Mando. Let's do this again and have Omega be a Jedi clone.
Because that's like dangerously close. That's not just like, oh, there's some similarities. That's like the exact same plot.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
I don't think that'll be it. They're not that stupid. They're not.
Yeah. The only difference will be is like, it's not, we're looking for this one person and that's it. It seems like it's going to be the same sort of, hopefully it's not the same sort of premise, but it's a group of people that are against what's going on. Not so much we want this specific person.
I think that's a fair point. I think it'll be cool if season 1 is going to be 16 episodes. We'll keep tasking this throughout the podcast. We're not going to do weekly coverage of it, but like every time we do a Sky Guy's appearance, we'll check in what's going on here. I think the thing to see if Crosshair is just our main villain for these guys and they run into him all the time. We're going to see other sub villains pop up. I think that's going to be another interesting angle to track.
Yeah, I think Tarkin's going to play a big role in the show, but he can't be the main villain because we know he's not going to be defeated.
Yeah. Also the question here is, do we think Darth Vader pops up at some point?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say yes as well.
Yeah, I think we just
I'm
need to
hoping. I'm hoping.
Well, the only thing that worries me is James Earl Jones is like, he can't do it anymore. So that's what worries me. Maybe you might see him as Anakin in some sort of flashback or something like that. It's going to be really hard to see James Earl Jones doing the voice again. He sounded a little rough in spoiler alert, Rebels, and in Rogue One. I just can't imagine. This is 5-6 years later now. I don't know. He's getting up there in age. He's got to be in his late 80s, I would think.
There's also been on social media that the voice actor who played Anakin in Clone Wars, Matt Lanner, said he's coming back in some variation. So maybe it's here. He's coming back in some variation.
FYI, James Earl Jones is 90.
Yeah.
Oh, God bless.
I mean, you could tell in the Lion King when he was voicing Mufasa again. It was like he's definitely gotten up in age, and it's definitely impacted him.
Yeah, I think we'll see. I do think we will see him at some point. I don't know if we will see him as Vader in costume speaking a lot.
No, I can see. I think it could be a good. I think my theory on him is like he's going to show up in the finale. I think he'll just show up and he won't speak yet, and then they'll figure it out season 2.
This also could be a way. I mean, the way Star Wars is going now, with Mandalorian's big revival of the franchise, you'd really hate for this to be the last time you ever see Darth Vader speak. Maybe they bring someone else in. This could be their chance to try it out.
Yeah, it definitely could be.
They could do something where you have, like, I don't really know much about this kind of stuff, but I know they've done this before. You could bring in James Earl Jones and somebody else and kind of like bring their voices together in a way so the transition seems smoother when you just go to somebody else.
Yeah, it's something we'll definitely track as the series goes on. But before we wrap up, I have a fun little exercise here. I'm going to put the graphic of this in the note on the screen as you're watching the YouTube version of the video. But we're recording it after Star Wars Day, May the 4th. I'll give a shout out to the website. It was, I think, Dork Side of the Force, one of the fan-sided Star Wars website. They put one of those infographics where you have the groups of characters priced out $15. Build your light side squad. Again, the group's going to be on the screen. We all come with our own squads here, $15. I will start out with this exercise to give you the light side squad I built. I spent $4 on 2 people. I got Mando and Luke Skywalker. Then I basically brought in Fennec Shan at $3 to get us some shooting. I got then 3 $1 picks to round it out. Grogu, R2, and Boba Fett. So I think I got a pretty good squad of Skable doing a lot of different things.
So you definitely went with the rounded approach. I kind of went with the all-out attack approach where this is just a powerhouse team with 5 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I have 5 guys. I went one of each category. I went with Anakin, Luke, Kylo Ren, Mace Windu, and Grogu.
You went all in that Skywalker family.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't pick Rey though. I didn't pick Rey. I know you mentioned the Skywalker family. I know she proclaimed herself as a Skywalker at the end of 9. So
yeah, but
pick her.
Yeah, but we all know she's not a Skywalker. She's just saying that because that would be again LVP point to the writers of episode 9. But that's the whole movie is them screwing up.
Yeah, well, I know you had said we were going to talk some movies at the end of the Clone Wars.
In between Clone Wars and Rebels, we'll discuss the movie.
We'll get to that. But
Pete, what's your squad?
All right, so I took Ahsoka for $5, and then I decided to take Mando for $4, bringing it to $9. Then I took Boba, Rex, and R2D2 to get me to $12. And then I took Bo-Katan at $3.
That's a nice little diverse set of skills there you got.
Yeah, I figured Bo-Katan in there just because she has a little chip on her shoulder because she didn't really get the Darksaber the way she wanted to.
Yeah.
Just assuming that I'm getting her while she's still trying to get the Darksaber. So
definitely noticed with my squad here that of the 5 people that I picked, either all of them have turned to the dark side or flirted very closely with doing so. So my team might be a little dangerous. I know Anakin obviously did, and Kylo obviously did. Luke almost did in episode 6 when he was beating the crap out of Vader doing this.
Yeah.
And Mace Windu, same thing when he tried to murder the Chancellor. I know, it was for the greater good, all that. And Grogu, we saw him when he was being held hostage, throwing people around the room. So my team is a little dangerous.
volatile. A little volatile.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think Pete has the most like Sky Guys friendly cast here because he's got pretty much like everybody from Clone Wars, Rebels, or Mando, aside from R2.
You're welcome. Look, you never know where you need R2 to open up a door or fly your ship. So R2's like got to be there.
That's why I picked him, and I wanted pilots. I picked Boba Fett to be my pilot.
Cheap, $1. I'll take him. I'll take him for $1.
Yeah, Boba Fett and R2 at $1 are fantastic values in that chart.
I just couldn't pass up Grogu. If he's only $1, I thought he'd be a $5 selection.
Yeah. Also, I want to say, how does Chewie not make the chart?
Let me ask you this: what skill does Chewie have that these people don't have?
Well, I mean, he can pilot the ship. He's got the crossbow, so you got that going on.
Well, to be honest, if we just pick Rey,
if
we pick Rey, she can pilot. She can be a Jedi. She can be the most interesting character. She's a Skywalker. I mean, did everything. We should have just did 3 Reys.
Yeah, well, I took Luke in about
self-proclaimed Skywalker.
Yeah,
she's not really a Skywalker.
Yeah,
if you can't tell with my tone of voice, I'm very sarcastic about my opinion.
Yeah, I think my approach was I had a Jedi in training, shooters, and a droid. So I think I'm in good shape there.
And to be clear, although I don't like Rey, I do like Finn and Kylo Ren. I do like them.
Yeah, I
wish they were written different, and we'll talk about the movies, but I do like those characters. I thought they were fun.
Absolutely, and that's a good. We're going to wrap up season 4 coverage. And Nick, season 5 next month. You said it's the best season of the show, in your opinion. Do you know why it was only 20 episodes, not 22?
I'm not positive, but I think I know why. Don't quote me on this. I could be wrong. This is just my kind of like a guess, but it makes sense. So when 5 came out originally on Cartoon Network, it was the last one on Cartoon Network. I think this was the end of the show. And especially with the way it ends, I think this is supposed to be the end of the Clone Wars. And then it got picked up by Netflix a few years later for season 6, and then Disney Plus many years later, which was last year, for season 7. So my belief is this is supposed to be the end.
Yeah, because
and sometimes how it's like ending seasons are a little bit shorter, like it happens all the time.
Yeah, so basically this is the first of 3 series finales for Clone Wars.
Yeah, so 6 was never meant to be. So let me just explain. 5 was supposed to be, I think, the end. And then when season 6 came for Netflix renewed, it was just called the Lost Episodes kind of thing.
Yeah, the Lost Missions, as they called it.
It wasn't supposed to be like an ending. And everyone knew season 7 existed. They were made already, and they were out there on the internet, just not properly animated. And you could have, not all of them, but half of them. And you could have watched them, and they're the same dialogue pretty much and everything. And then they put it together, they polished it up, and they made a legit ending to the show with the final arc.
Yeah, it's certainly true. So at least anything to see what happens in season 5. We'll get a lot of interesting stuff coming up. I want to thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it. Pete, how can people follow you on social media? Keep on some of the stuff you're up to.
At PJ Consadori 29 on Twitter. Did a lot of stuff about the Rangers recently.
Oh yeah. Check our podcast last week about that.
Yeah.
And Nick, how about you?
Not ready to disclose just yet, but I'm very excited for the Giants season. I know you had already had some discussions on the draft. I love the Giants draft. I'm really pumped. And something we haven't talked about really, me and you especially, Mike, because I've been on here numerous times talking football and stuff. I've never talked baseball. I'm loving the Yankees this year. They had a slow start, but they're looking great now, and I think we're gonna turn some heads. I don't know if we can beat the Dodgers, but we got to get there first.
Yeah, and again, he'll follow you on social media if you leave your handles in the YouTube chat.
That's right.
All right, guys. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, always a pleasure.